The 49ers might be on the verge of doing something that could completely shift the balance of power in the NFL. And it starts with one name, Tyreek Hill. A superstar wide receiver is suddenly available. And even though this franchise doesn't usually chase big-name receivers in free agency, this situation feels different. It feels urgent. It feels calculated. And it feels like something that could either put this team over the top or backfire in a big way. So let's slow this down and really think through what's happening here. Because this isn't just another rumor floating around in the offseason. This is Tyreek Hill, one of the most explosive players of this generation. Now here's where this gets interesting for you as a 49ers fan. This isn't some random free agent popping up out of nowhere. In a strange way, the 49ers have been indirectly tied to Tyreek's career arc for years. Think back to draft night when San Francisco made that massive move up the board, giving up significant future capital to select Trey Lance. That blockbuster deal involved the Miami Dolphins, who later used that flexibility to reshape their roster. Eventually, Tyreek moved from the Kansas City Chiefs to the Miami Dolphins, and the ripple effects of that original trade tree still echo today. The 49ers were part of that chain reaction. And now, in a full circle twist, Hill is sitting there available. So the question becomes, is this destiny or is it desperation? Before we even talk fit or money or medicals, we have to remember exactly who Tyreek Hill is when he's healthy and locked in. This is not just a fast receiver. This is a defensive nightmare. In Kansas City, he was a multi-time All-Pro, a deep ball assassin, a screen game weapon, and a touchdown machine. Nearly 6,700 yards and 67 touchdowns with the Chiefs alone. Then in Miami, he didn't slow down. Back-to-back seasons pushing toward 1,700 yards. Defenses built entire game plans around him and still couldn't stop him. When he lines up, safeties backpedal early. Corners give cushion. Linebackers hesitate. And in the NFL, that half second of hesitation is everything. Yes, he's dealt with injuries. Yes, he's approaching the later stages of his prime. But let me ask you something honestly. If a slightly diminished version of Tyreek Hill is still faster than almost every defensive back in the league, does that still change games? Because I think it does. Speed like that doesn't just vanish overnight. And when you're only a couple of seasons removed from nearly 1,800 receiving yards, you're not some washed-up afterthought. You're still dangerous. Now here's where I want you involved. If you're sitting in John Lynch's chair right now, do you make the call? Simple yes or no. Drop it in the comments. Yes, you pursue Tyreek Hill. Or no, you pass and invest elsewhere. I want to see where Niner faithful really stand on this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Most people watching aren't subscribed, and if you want to stay ahead of every move this team could make during this crazy offseason, make sure you hit that button and turn on notifications. We're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps build this community. Because coming up next, we're going to break down the real football side of this. Not just the name, not just the highlight reels. We're going to talk about whether Tyreek Hill actually fits what Kyle Shanahan does offensively, and whether this move would make the 49ers unstoppable or just more complicated. Let me know when you're ready for the next chapter. When you really zoom in on this from a football perspective, this is where things start to get fascinating. Because if you strip away the headlines and the superstar label and just focus on the scheme, Tyreek Hill might be one of the most natural fits you could possibly imagine in Kyle Shanahan's offense. And that's not hype, that's structure. Shanahan's system is built on stress stop pre-snap, motion, play action, forcing linebackers to hesitate, forcing safeties to declare, creating that tiny half second of confusion that turns a 5-yard throw into a 25-yard gain. Now think about what Tyreek Hill does best. He forces hesitation just by lining up. Defensive backs play softer. Safeties cheat deeper. Entire coverage shell shift. That's before the ball is even snapped. You saw what he did in Miami under Mike McDaniel, who comes directly from the Shanahan coaching tree. Motion heavy. Offense dot quick hitters. Yards after catch. Deep crossers off play action. It's the same philosophy. In San Francisco, he wouldn't be learning something foreign. He'd be stepping into the architecture that helped unlock his game in the first place. Imagine this for a second. Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. George Kittle attached to the line. Brandon Ayuk on one side. Tyreek Hill in motion across the formation. What does the defense do? If they spin the safety toward Hill, you lighten the Box for McCaffrey. If they crowd the line to stop the run, you're one play action fake away from Hill running past the safety who took one false step. That's how Shanahan punishes hesitation. And here's the key. You don't even need 2023 Tyreek Hill to make this work. You don't need 1,800 yards. You need fear. You need gravity. Even a slightly diminished version of Hill still demands double attention. That changes spacing for everyone else. It changes how teams play third down. It changes red zone. Coverage. It changes everything. Now let me flip this back to you. If you had to choose one play to open the season with Tyreek in a 49ers uniform, what is it? A jet sweep? A deep play action shot? A tunnel screen with blockers in space? Drop your answer in the comments. I want specifics. Draw it up in your head and tell me what you'd call. And here's something else that matters. Shanahan has always been at his most dangerous when he has a true vertical threat who forces defensive coordinators to lose sleep. The 49ers have been explosive, no doubt, but adding someone who can score from anywhere on the field without needing a perfectly blocked play, that's different. That's a defensive coordinator rewriting his call sheet all week. If you love breaking down the X's and O's like this, make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications. When big roster moves happen, we don't just react, we analyze. We look at how it actually impacts Sundays. And we're closing in on 2,000 subscribers. If you're a part of this community, help us get there. It means more in the offseason than ever. But here's where we have to be real with each other. Because for every reason this makes sense schematically, there's an equally important conversation about risk, about medical reports, about age, about whether going all in right now is smart or reckless. That's what we're diving into next. Now let's have the honest conversation. Because everything we just talked about sounds exciting. It sounds explosive. It sounds like the kind of move that wins headlines in March and scares the rest of the NFC. But this is the NFL, and big swings come with real consequences. The first word that has to be addressed is medical. Tyreek Hill is not 26 anymore. He's entering the later stages of his career, and he's coming off a serious injury. A dislocated knee, multiple ligament damage, surgery. That's not a minor hamstring tweak you shake off in 3 weeks. That's the kind of injury that can alter explosiveness, and explosiveness is his superpower. When your entire game is built on acceleration and suddenness, even a small drop-off matters. So you have to ask yourself, are you getting the version of Tyreek who can take the top off a defense every single snap? Or are you getting a player who has to manage reps, who misses stretches of games, who can't quite hit that same second gear? And this is where the front office calculus gets serious. The 49ers aren't rebuilding. They're not. Patiently stacking draft picks for a 5-year plan. This roster is constructed to win now. Christian McCaffrey is in the heart of his prime. Trent Williams is chasing a championship window that won't stay open forever. Nick Bosa and Fred Warner are elite right now. George Kittle has already battled injuries. The core of this team is either at its peak or just past it. That means every decision isn't just about talent. It's about timing. Do you push chips into the middle of the table knowing the window might only be 2 or 3 seasons? Or do you protect flexibility and trust internal development? Because signing Tyreek isn't just adding a player. It affects cap structure. It affects future extensions. It affects depth. When you commit major resources to a veteran coming off surgery, you're saying, we believe this is the final piece. And let me ask you something directly. What scares you more, the injury risk or the opportunity cost? Would you rather gamble on a proven superstar with medical red flags or keep the assets and trust the draft? Drop one word in the comments, medical or assets. I'm genuinely curious which side you fall on. This also comes down to belief in leadership. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have built one of the most talented rosters in football. But the reality is, this group hasn't finished the job. They've been close, painfully close. And when you're that close, sometimes organizations convince themselves that one more elite piece is all it takes. But sometimes that final push ends up being too aggressive. And don't forget the internal question. If you bring in Tyreek, what does that mean for the receivers already on the roster? What does it mean for locker room chemistry? What does it mean for targets? For development? Big personalities and big contracts shift dynamics. This is why this decision isn't simple. It's not just highlight reels versus medical charts. It's philosophy. It's identity. It's whether the 49ers double down on, win right now or stay disciplined. Make sure you're subscribed if you appreciate balanced conversations like this. We're not just chasing hype, we're breaking down what it actually means. And we're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers. So if you've been watching but haven't hit that button yet, now's the perfect time. Because next, I'm going to give you my verdict. If I'm in that building, here's what I would do and why. So here's where I land on this, and I'm going to give it to you straight. If Tyreek Hill clears medical evaluation and the contract structure protects the team long-term, I make the call. Not because it's flashy, not because it wins the offseason headline cycle, but because this roster is built to win right now. Windows like this don't stay open forever. Christian McCaffrey isn't getting younger. Trent Williams isn't going to play 5 more elite seasons. George Kittle has already put a lot of miles on his body. Nick Bosa and Fred Warner are in their prime, but the salary cap realities tighten every year. At some point, you either go for it or you don't. Adding Tyreek isn't about replacing someone. It's about elevating the ceiling. It's about forcing every defensive coordinator in the NFC to rethink their entire approach to playing the 49ers. It's about creating an offense that can score from anywhere on the field without needing perfect execution on every snap. But here's the key. It has to be calculated. You don't overextend. You don't gut the future. You structure the deal smartly. Incentives, protection clauses. You make sure you're not tying the franchise to something that could collapse if the need doesn't respond the way you hope. If the numbers don't make sense, then you pivot. And there are pivots. You can trust internal growth. You can explore trade options for younger receivers. You can invest draft capital. You can stay patient. There are paths that don't involve a 32-year-old superstar coming off surgery. But let's not pretend. There's another player on the market who changes defensive geometry the way Tyreek Hill does. There just isn't. Even at 90%, he forces adjustments before the snap. That's rare. That's game-altering. So now I'm turning it back to you one last time. Final vote. Type it exactly like this in the comments. Sign Tyreek or nitrogen monoxide thanks. And give me the words why. Keep it simple. I want to see where this community stands. And if you've made it this far in the video, you're exactly the kind of fan we want here. Help us hit 1,000 subscribers. Hit subscribe right now and like the video if you enjoy these deep dives. The offseason moves fast, and the moment anything breaks, whether it's Tyreek, a trade, or surprise signing, we'll break it down right here, because one move can change everything.